This is a podcast from the Office for National Statistics, covering the impact of the recession on household income. We will show how household disposable income, after adjusting for inflation, fell for the first time in 30 years in 2010. For a transcript, email info@ons.gov.uk. Firstly, we will look at the percentage change in household income over the last 35 years, starting at 1975 right up to 2010. We will plot the three periods showing the last three recessions, shown by the bars here, and we can see that in the mid to late 1970s, household income was growing by over 15%, driven by high wage growth, and the annual growth in household income fell sharply during the 1980s recession. Growth also slowed during the 1990s recession, and from around 1995 it remained fairly stable at around 5%, before slowing again in the recent recession. One thing to consider when looking at household income is the impact of inflation. This is important because if price growth is greater than the growth in household income, then in real terms, household income is falling. In other words, the same amount of income will not be able to purchase as much. This is seen in the 1970s, early 1980s, and also in 2010. So for the first time in almost 30 years, real household income fell in the UK. The squeeze continued in the first quarter of 2011, when real household income fell by 2.7%, compared with the same period of 2010, the biggest fall since 1977 quarter 3. So let's look at real household income. Here is the line showing where the annual change in real household income is zero, so below this line means it has fallen. Here are the three periods we showed on the previous graph, with a fall of around 2% in the 1970s, a marginal fall in the 1980s, and a fall of 0.8% in 2010. The fall in household income in 2010 highlights the extent to which conditions facing households have deteriorated. This has implications for household spending and saving, and therefore economic growth, and the economic well-being of households. Looking at more recent years, here's the annual change in gross household income, and it has been between 2 and 5% over the past 5 years. However, the main contributions to household income have changed over the period, which we will explain later. Here is inflation, which fell sharply between 2008 and 2009 before rising in 2010. Taking the difference, we get real household income, and you can see the fall of 0.8% in 2010. We will now look at how each of the main components of household income contributes to the annual change we've seen in each of the last 5 years. To explain this, here is the growth rate in 2006, where household income increased by 4.3%. Now let's look at the first component of household income, which is compensation of employees, which is largely wages and salaries from employment, but also includes other forms of remuneration such as employers' pension contributions and national insurance contributions. Of the total increase in household income, this component contributed 4.3% to the growth. Now the next component is net property income, which in simple terms is the income from interest or dividends from assets, for example savings in a bank account, less any interest paid out, for example on mortgages or loans. Note that if mortgage interest payments fall and nothing else changes, this would lead to an increase in net property income. In 2006, of the increase in household income, 0.5% came from net property income. The other main component of household income is the difference between taxes paid, where we look at direct taxes such as income tax and national insurance, and benefits received. In 2006, this difference actually contributed to pulling household income down, shown here with the bar being below 0%. And this means that in the UK in 2006, growth in taxes paid by households outstripped growth in benefits received. There are also other things that contribute to household income, which we will group here as other. So adding each of these components gives the growth rate of 4.3%. And we can see that in 2006 it was income received from the compensation of employees, mainly through wages and salaries, that meant household income increased. If we fade out the bars for 2006 and now look at each year in turn, in 2007 household income grew by 3.3%, less than in 2006. Here are the components, so we can see similar to 2006, the compensation of employees contributed to the growth, with taxes and benefits and net property income pulling the growth down. In 2008, which includes the first 9 months of the recent recession, household income actually increased by more than in 2007, and was similar to the increase in 2006. However, the increase was not driven solely through compensation of employees, shown here with a much smaller bar. It was because net property income and taxes and benefits contributed positively to the growth rather than negatively as in 2007. The main reason net property income contributed positively was because of an historically low interest rate set by the Bank of England, resulting in lower mortgage interest payments, as we explained earlier, since interest payments are a deduction from household income. This serves to support household income in 2008 and 2009. Because of rising unemployment in 2008, the amount of tax the household sector as a whole paid was reduced and the benefits paid out to households increased. The result is the positive contribution from taxes and benefits. In 2009, which includes the last 9 months of the recent recession, again household income grew, but not as much as in previous years, by 2.5%. The main driver of growth was taxes and benefits as unemployment increased further. Also included within the other component is income from self-employment, which contributed negatively as self-employment fell. In 2010, after the end of the recent recession, household income grew by 3.4%, higher than the growth in 2009. As the labour market started to recover, the contribution from compensation from employees increased, although it remained below pre-recession levels. The other components also increased, driven by increases in self-employment. The contribution from taxes and benefits was marginally negative. So going back to the previous chart, we can see that the main reason for the fall in real household income growth in 2010 was the strength in inflation.